Library. Prime Time celebrates learning beyond the classroom through the experiences and accomplishments of both faculty, students, and staff. And this is a collaborative project between Friends of the BU Library, faculty development, and many other offices on campus, including the English department. We'll be starting our spring presentation schedule soon. Keep an eye on the library webpage in February for more great presentations as they are scheduled. If you missed the presentation, most are recorded and can be viewed online in our BU Digital Library, also found on the library website. Faculty and students, have you assigned or been assigned a research project that required significant library research? The Friends of the BU Library are accepting applications for the $250 Library Research Prize. The deadline is February the 15th. So pull out those research papers that you did probably in the fall and submit your paper for this wonderful prize. Today, I'm happy to say that we're here to hear a writer's workshop from J-Term. We have 10 students presenting their work, and we'll have a range of fiction, prose, poetry, and journalism. Thank you for coming out.
Hello everyone. My name is Mark Dusseldorf. I'll be reading a portion of a novella I've been working on entitled The Witching Hour, and this is from the beginning, part 1, Stroke of Luck. Dan. So as everyone probably knows, the folks from corporate and their guests from China will be coming through today. We all know how much it means for the company when the warehouse looks clean and tidy for visiting customers, so I might take a few of you off the line and put you on dusting duty. Remember to keep smiling and be as friendly as you can. If any of you know Mandarin, I didn't think so. The weatherman says it's going to be a hot day today, just like every other day, so we're not getting any breaks here. Keep hydrated, know your limits. In other news, our numbers dropped off pretty sharp yesterday, and as you can imagine, Vaughn wasn't too pleased with that. If you want to be the one to tell Vaughn that it was just too hot to get those packages out, be my guest. I spent all morning on the phone with Corpus Christi trying to explain why they don't have their engine block today. They weren't too cuddly. One more thing, Sam will be starting a little later this afternoon, Sam being a girl, so help her get acquainted with things. I suppose that's all. Work safe, work smart. It was Dan's 3rd month as area manager. He told his wife he would at least see the summer through, and he was. He had worked for 20 years at the company, first as a welder, then assembler, material handler, and finally management. The morning run-in with tubby, waddling Vaughn squeezed something inside Dan, and since then he'd been pacing like a pissed mule in his office, planning a startup speech to the 11 a.m. crew who had become known in the company as the Lost Souls. Most of them were old, veterans of the company who had come to the warehouse to die. Retirement was in view, but out of reach for them. Routine was a nostalgic and mild term compared to the diabolic trudge that infected them when the end was in sight. By 4 p.m., the rest of the company's 2,000 employees were filing towards the parking lot, but the 15-second shifters were still taping and shipping packages till 8, fumbling to get all the orders out the door. By the end of their shift, the summer sun was receding, and there was a peace along the mile, the stretch of 8 factory plants just outside Clinton, Iowa, that made up most of the town's workforce, as well as 3 surrounding towns. Ian Wallace stood at the back of the group during Dan's oration, drinking gas station coffee from a styrofoam cup. He had grown fat in the last few years, rotund really, and could only look sentimentally at the faded and curled photograph above his workbench, a picture of his brigade back in the Scottish Army. The faces of those with whom he had traveled the world were now unfamiliar and distant. That was in the 1970s, long before he emigrated to the States in search of work in the 90s. He had been making a list on a napkin beside his workbench. Cyprus, January through May 1973, Naples, September through November 1975, San Diego, December 1976. He had a fire-red mustache back then, before his son and before the misguided marriage to Jenny. Even after their divorce, she worked inventory in the same plant as Ian, beyond the steel pilings and industrial parts. Kenneth worked up there too. Ken, her new boyfriend, Kenny, who drove a forklift all day and smoked cigarettes around Ian's son at night. Ian could smell it on his clothes when he picked him up on the weekends. Every day he took the back entrance to avoid Jenny and her man. Well, Ian said, patting Jack on the back, I don't know what the fuck's his problem. Ain't our fault we're doing a bloody 50-person job with 15. Until they see it our way, which they won't, nothing's about to bloody change. I don't understand. What did we do wrong, Jack said. That's just it, Ian said. They won't tell us what we did wrong, but they'll sure as hell tell us that we did it wrong. Jack was 21 and home from college. He spent every summer between semesters packing boxes at the warehouse, drinking with high school friends in the evening, and reading as much as he could. Ian and Jack began working at adjacent benches, marking invoices and packing parts into cardboard boxes. All he could do was smile nervously at Ian's insurgent remarks. Any plans for the weekend, Jack said. Yeah, I'm going to take me boy out to the lake, Ian said. Ah, the wee man. What about you, Jack? You gonna get laid already or what? I'll just ignore that, Jack said. I don't even need plans just yet. I'll probably stay home, watch TV. Ian chuckled and shook his head. I fell asleep watching me program last night and spilled vodka orange all over me bloody pants. I just can't stay awake anymore. I just can't do it. I know what you mean, Jack said. No, you don't, Ian laughed. You're just a fucking lad still. You're not old and fat like me.
Hello, my name is Joyce, and I'll be reading from my prose and poetry piece called Granite Tours. It's about a 15-mile trail in interior Alaska. People, progress, comes and goes, passing where I sit. Racing, pacing, they ignore, adventures I'd permit. Changing, turning, rising up, then steeply plunging down. Through me you glimpse, the depths eclipse, by diversions found downtown. Welcome to Granite Tours, Evie said, looking at the posting. That's funny, I thought it was spelled like tours, since it sounds that way. Like you're going on a tour of the rocks? Something like that. I wonder what a tour is anyways. Millions of years ago, the tours formed when magma pushed up through the Earth's crust, cooling before reaching the surface. Brent's voice took on a sing-song quality. Over time, the soft soil eroded around the tours, leaving pinnacles protruding along the Alaskan landscape. Suddenly, you're a geologist. I can read. Brent pointed to the information tacked on the board. Oh yeah? What does that sign say? Evie indicated a sign handwritten in green marker on printer paper. The sign read, Grizzly Bear, sighted, on West Trailhead, May 27. Hikers advised to use caution. Brent patted his enormous backpack. That's why I'm packing. Evie stared at him, eyes wide. Bears can run as fast as a horse. You won't be able to pull it out in time. Suddenly you're a biologist. That's why I have this. He patted a green can attached to his belt by a carabiner. Camouflage Febreze? Bear spray. This stuff will put a man in the hospital. It'll do the trick. Yeah, but if it doesn't? I've taught you how to shoot. You'll have enough time. Heh, this bad boy will probably knock you over, though. You'll need to brace yourself. Evie looked at the can of bear spray. I don't even know how to use it. Pull the pin, point, make sure you're upwind, and spray. Evie's eyes were wide. What happens if you're downwind? Excuse me, Mr. Bear, while I circle upwind of you. Don't worry. We won't see any bears. It'll be fine. This'll be fun. It's us. Together. Yeah, sure. Evie didn't sound convinced. She hid her fears, though, and braced herself for some hiking. Eventually, she hoped to marry this man. Shall we do this? Yes, let's start by crossing the road. Boardwalks plank across boggy spruce, black, bold, and resolved. Bridges range the rocky creek, with an ease the hikers seek, charming all that are involved. After some debate, the couple decided to hike the trail in a clockwise circle, ascending on the east or left-hand side, and descending on the right and west-hand side of the trail. This first part cut into a boggy area of black spruce, a curiously short kind of coniferous tree that grows in a drunken pattern, this way and that. Its shortness derives from its ability to grow in permafrost, a layer of soil that typically remains frozen year-round. Black spruce is never much to look at, but the undergrowth beneath it tends to be spongy and aesthetic. At that time of the year, though, the brush consisted of many shades of brown. Pockets of lower land between held water from snowmelt. The day was young, and not 20 minutes had passed. Feeling fresh and energetic, the couple stopped to snap a picture of the creek and bridge. They continued onward. Evie's pack dug into her shoulders a bit. She thought to herself she would rather spend time off work, at home on a couch, watching a chick flick or some romantic drama, or getting a pedicure. The weight of her pack was hefty, and she was determined to prove to Brent that though she needed her running water, there was more to her than met the eye. To convince herself, she said out loud, "This is great. I can handle this. We haven't even made the first mile marker yet. Yeah, but with 15 more like this, I could handle it all day." At least, she thought she could. Well, probably not. But the first step to believing is speaking. "Well, thankfully for you, we're only doing 5 each day. It'll be like nothing." As soon as she said that, the trail inclined greatly through the tall white spruce trees.
Hello, my name is Austin Boylan, and I'll be reading from a fictional short story that I've been writing for the past few weeks, The Chronicles of the Amazing Professor Schneider. I shall be reading from Chapter 3, The Stress Bandit. Should have opened it beforehand. Ray had his hands full at work. He'd been busy writing articles about a criminal who had already robbed 3 of New York City's banks in a week. Jameson had insisted on giving a name to the robber to help sell papers, so Ray chose a moniker based on witness accounts that the robber was dressed in a high-end suit and tie, fedora, jewelry, and brand-new leather shoes. He was known to the New York public as Black Bart, after the well-dressed robber of the Old West. Ray stopped by Schneider's place after work, as he often did, to see how he's holding up in New York. When he walked in, Schneider was in one of his chairs in front of a roaring fire, reading the newspaper. "Professor, how have you been?" Ray asked. "Could be better," Schneider responded, sounding more than a little depressed. He explained he had gone to his usual synagogue and that worship that day to find it had been vandalized with paint by a group of kids. "I don't understand the anger towards my people. We've never harmed anyone. We just want to find our way in the world like everyone else," Schneider lamented. "But enough sad stories. I was just reading your last article on this bank robber." Schneider then proceeded to read aloud the article to emphasize its intrigue. "Today was one of the 4 bank robberies committed by the same man in New York. Today's robbery took place at Goldman Sachs Bank in Brooklyn, netting the lone robber $15,000. Suspect has been described by witnesses as a white male in his mid-30s, tall, well-built, and extremely intelligent and organized. The main characteristic of the suspect, however, has been his taste in high-end clothing and jewelry worn during all robberies so far, leading him to be dubbed Black Bart in reference to the elegant thief of the Old West who robbed multiple Wells Fargo stagecoaches. Case is currently being investigated by NYPD's most capable detective, Joel Forbes." Schneider finished his reading and set the paper on the table, as Ray took a seat in the opposite chair on his left. "Quite fascinating, don't you think, Raymond? This man is clearly no rookie to the cops and robbers game, as he has single-handedly robbed 4 banks in under a week." Ray nodded in agreement. "I've met with Forbes, and I doubt he's going to be up to the task of catching this guy," Ray said in an upset tone of voice, when he was struck by an idea, remembering his plans to focus his articles on an amazing individual, and also seeing a fantastic opportunity for Schneider. "Professor, why don't you look into the case? You're clearly smarter than most of, if not all, the cops at the station. More importantly, you're showing New York how misplaced their views are about your people." Ray knew this would hit a chord to motivate his friend. Not only was Schneider a very empathetic individual, he was sickened by the anger towards Jews. Schneider stroked his face and thought, "Well, it might be an interesting intellectual exercise, and I would like to help to make the community a better place." Ray pushed harder, knowing his friend's skills. "Professor, you can do this. This isn't Germany. You could impact how New York looks at your people." Schneider knew the anger towards Jews at its top, and maybe if he took a stance in defense of the city, it would elevate their standing. "All right, Raymond, let's stroll down to the bank in Brooklyn and see what we can uncover." Schneider grabbed his jacket, Ray grabbed his notepad and pen, and the two set off. The Brooklyn Golden Sachs was only a small walk from Schneider's clock shop. LaForbes was already present, questioning witnesses, and noticed the two approaching. He immediately recognized Ray and greeted him in surprise. "Mr. Johnson, what are you doing here? Looking for another part to add to your story?" Ray shook his head and replied, "This is my friend Arnold Schneider, and we were wondering if we could, well, take a look at the scene, maybe help out." LaForbes shook Schneider's hand and stated aloud, "Schneider, huh? That a German name?" Schneider replied that it was indeed. "You wouldn't be returning to the scene of a crime, would you?" LaForbes stated in an accusatory tone. Schneider denied this, but did not seem too offended by the implied insult. LaForbes quickly turned to Ray. "Anyway, why would I let you look at my crime scene? This isn't a museum, and I doubt you two would be of any help." Schneider nodded, before replying, "Well, I can see how you would think that. You clearly do not have very good judgment being a gambling addict." LaForbes instantly looked shocked, but did not deny the allegation, stating in an irritated tone, "Would you call me?" Schneider calmly responded, "There's a mark between your thumb and pointer finger that looks like you've been shuffling an large amount of cards, most likely in a home game." Ray chuckled at his friend's deductions, while LaForbes merely seemed dumbfounded. "Well, I guess you can look around, ask a couple of questions, just don't get in my way." Schneider grinned. "1,000 thanks, detective," he said in a clearly mocking tone. He then gestured Ray to talk to the teller who had been face-to-face with the robber while he looked around the bank. Ray learned little from her account, saying that Blackbar waited in line when he got to the counter, handed her a note, demanding money, and moved his suit jacket so she could see his gun. She quickly handed over all the money in her drawer and watched him calmly walk out the door. Ray diligently took down notes while Schneider strolled around the inside and outside of the bank, pacing in circles, an indication that he was deep in thought. He then gestured for Ray to come over to a patch of mud right by the door. "I would say some unfortunate bank robber has gotten mud all over his new shoes. Thankfully, we had a spot of rain last night, and this dirt patch turned mud patch was ignored by our man in his flight." Schneider beamed, pointing to a perfect footprint. "I should say it's a 10.5 size shoe. Well, let's go, Raymond. There's nothing more to be learned here, and I have a hunch where we can find a clue to identifying this man." Schneider was confused when he joined Ray in a cab that took them to Harry's Shoes, a high-end shoe store all the way on the other side of New York. Probably one of the best places in the city to get luxury shoes. Schneider claimed if this man was a New York City native, such expensive shoes could only have come from here. The two walked inside, and Schneider approached the counter attendant, an older and graying man with white hair and a mustache. "Hello, sir. We're looking for a man who came here not too long ago and bought a pair of 10.5 size black leather shoes, most likely paid in cash." Schneider looked around before spotting a pair that matched the witness description. It would have been a pair of those shoes. The employee thought for a minute when a look of certainty came on his face. "Yeah, a guy paid in cash for a pair of those early this week. What did he look like?" Ray asked, readying his pen and paper. "A white, younger guy in an expensive blue suit." Schneider grabbed the pen and paper and asked the employee a variety of specific questions about the man. Eye color, hair length, color, facial features, and the employee did his best to answer fully. All the while, Schneider furiously scribbled on the paper. Before turning it to the employee, "Does this look like him?" The employee looked astounded at the resemblance. "That's the guy. It looks like you took his picture." Schneider then studied the portrait himself, looking perturbed like he was seeing a familiar face. He turned back to the employee, his usual grin on his face. "Thank you for your help." He then gestured to Ray it was time to go. Once outside, he revealed his thinking to Ray. "Raymond, I have a hunch I know exactly who this man is, but I'm not positive yet. Let us meet again tomorrow, and I will fill you in on what I discover." Raymond nodded before expressing his amazement at his friend's rendering of the robber. "I didn't know you could draw like that." Schneider shrugged. "It's a gift, side packaged the way my detail-oriented, meticulous mind works. I just tried to match exactly what he told me. You should have seen me in art class I took in college in Berlin. They say I could have been the next Max Ernst." The two chuckled, and Ray once again saw the light-hearted man who had emerged from a land in such a dark place. The two then parted company and went to their separate homes for the night.
Hi, my name is Mandy. I will be reading 3 poems from a series of poetry following the memoirs of a German war veteran. I knew a man. I knew a man who owned a corner shop. A silver coin from him would buy a chocolate square or a lemon drop. A chocolate square or a lemon drop was my reward when from school I did stop at the end of the day. At the end of the day, when night grew dark, I would help him close, and we would stroll to the park. We would stroll to the park as friends on a long walk. Of history and of his people he did talk. He did talk of whence he came, of where he's going, the meaning of his name. The meaning of his name, my people are alive. Through centuries of struggle, they did survive. They did survive, but he must have known the doom. He must have sensed the change that over him did loom. Over him did loom as we neared his shop, an unavoidable truth, a force too strong to stop. A force too strong to stop would throw this nation askew and take away the man I once knew. Sestina of pain. To the women we defiled and stole, and the children that we beat and starved, to the men we threw into graves, if I could but change the past. Had I known I was capable of this damage, I too would have fled to the mountains. But there is no freedom in the mountains. Power was not my own, it was stolen. From the property we damaged and the people we starved, I want to leap behind the past, bury it like the men in the graves. My heart breaks remembering the names on the graves. As the sun casts a shadow on the mountains, the events are in the past. But the pain remains in the freedom we stole. Children still cry, people are still starving, their hearts marred and damaged. My soul is torn, broken, damaged because of the bodies I threw in the graves, and the wails of the infants that starved. Fear covered the once majestic mountains, their looming power we too had stolen. Days of harmony had long since passed. War has been our past. Our future holds the damage from the lives we have stolen, the loved ones in their graves, the spies in the mountains, and the whimper of infants who starved. We killed, we hurt, we starved. But we must turn from our past and look with hope at the mountains. Let us rebuild the walls we damaged. Let us revisit the dead at their graves and return what we stole. We cannot return stolen lives or children we starved. We cannot take back the graves. We must acknowledge our past. Can you forgive the damage? Can we give the mountains back their splendor? Painted halls. Pictures on the walls of soldiers. Paintings in the frame of heroes who fought for freedom instead of power, who died for peace instead of fame. Faces on a canvas of men, portraits on an easel of women who survived the war instead of caused it, who were saved from camps instead of built them. Complexions in paint of people, records on paper of names, of those who died to save instead of kill, the names of heroes instead of villains.
Hi, my name is Taylor VanderHeiden, and I'll be reading an excerpt from my novel, Chasing Some Days. A new kind of awkward. Every time, it's a whole new kind of awkward. I think this to myself as I stand, yep, awkwardly, you guessed it, inside the area around the football field at school. I want to go sit in the stands, but I'm not sure who to sit with. School starts in a week. The first football game always is a week prior. The place hums with life. Parents crowding the stands, gabbing about the players, the kids, people more commonly known as my peers, walking around, around, and around again on the track that outlines the field, gossiping, looking cool. Boys who aren't on the team play football in the grass by the fence. All the girls are wearing their back-to-school jeans, lots of dark-washed, distressed skinny jeans, most likely from Abercrombie, breaking them in and showing them off. They pair them with tank tops in various colors and flip-flops. I don't get that at all. Haven't they heard of a bejeweled flat sandal, at least? I'm looking at all the shoes on the people around me and mulling over their choices in my head when I see Isabel Lawrence. Dark blonde hair, blue eyes, petite. She's the most popular girl in school, naturally. I look left, look right, and sneak closer to her so I can see what she's wearing and doing. Surrounded by a throng of people, as usual, she looks lucky, dressed in her own pair of back-to-school jeans, black cigarette pants to get technical about it, very similar to ones I saw by Jabrin on ShopUp.com 2 weeks ago, along with a teal silk tuna tank with a leather jacket over it. And yay, she wears a pair of black, strappy, flat sandals, her pink pantyhose peeking out of them. I give a nod of approval. It's a good thing Isabel can't see me being all stalkerish and creepy standing beside this light pole, where I'm trying hard to look nonchalant.
I'm playing the whole if I can't see you, you can't see me game. My binocular in my hand starts to become annoying after a while, but I couldn't see but a few feet in front of myself clearly without it. Isabel can't see me, though, mostly because she's actually watching what's going on. Boys thundering up and down the football field under bright white lights, glory if ever I've seen it yet. Her friends try to pull her attention away from the game with questions about the latest Mac collection, or which Hemsworth brother is cuter, but she keeps her eyes on the football field. It's just to watch her boyfriend of however many months, Ian Lancaster, but I think that's okay. At least she has him. I certainly don't. Have anyone, I mean. I've never had a boyfriend in my life. This makes me feel half lame and alone and half rah-rah glory statement feministy. Watching Isabel watching Ian, it makes me feel just the lame and alone part, especially since the sun has gone down. It is quite chilly over here where I'm standing in the grass, and I've forgotten my sweater in the car. Perfect boyfriend opportunity, right? Some sweet boy would offer me his too big jacket, and I would be like I bet Isabel does. But I can't do that because I don't have anyone, like I said. No one to walk down the hallways with. No one to talk to about coupley things. And the worst of it is, I can't be all T-Swift like we are never ever getting back together because I don't have anyone that I got together with in the first place. You know, for as many breakup songs as she writes, she should feel lucky so many boys want to date her, or at least wanted to date her, until the threat of being written into a top 10 hit came about. If only I were so desired, you know? But I never have been, not to my knowledge anyway. Me being a blind girl definitely raises some concern on this subject. If some boy were to notice me, I would never know it. Unless he deliberately came out and said, hey, I think you're smart and funny and cool. Want to hang out and fall in love? And what boy's going to do that? Not many, let me tell you. Being the hopeless romantic that I am, I have this great notion in my head that some cute blonde boy will do that, though, someday. He'll give me looks or check me out or whatever, and I won't see any of it, totally oblivious in the way I hear I am too much of the time. One day, he'll get fed up. After class, he'll grab me gently by the arm and drag me over to some corner or a place where we talk privately, and he'd be all, I like you. Can't you see that? And I'd be all, no, I can't see that in my sarcastic voice. I never knew you liked me at all. And he'd be all, I gave you all those looks. I smiled at you. I held up my phone for you to text me or whatever. In all actuality, though, he probably wouldn't say that. Boys don't talk like that, do they? He'd probably just grunt or something and wait for me to figure it out. And then I'd say, well, sorry, I never saw him. Never? Nope, don't you know I'm visually impaired? And then his voice would grow quiet, and after a moment he'd say, no, I never knew that. On the specifics again, how would he not notice? I'd like to think it's pretty obvious just how non-seeing I am. Maybe I did it subconsciously, as in I faked it so well he'd forgotten. But I doubt it a lot. Anyway, well, that's the reason for the not noticing. Sorry, again. Don't be, he'd say nicely. Then he would smile at me, that I would see, of course. And then I'd smile back, my heart all fluttering in my chest, and we'd look at one another for a long moment, and thus would begin our relationship.
Microphone and everything. I feel so professional. Alright, for those of you who don't know, my name is Matthew Poss. I dabble in sci-fi fantasy, and particularly explore the question of what if. My story basically explores specifically the question of what if almost everyone in the world has a superpower, and what would those people without a superpower look like? Nice shock burst you got there, Ekin said. Shock burst? Your sword. It's called a shock burst because it releases electricity on contact. Good weapon for a basic. Somewhat makes up for not having an ability. Thanks, I guess, I replied uncomfortably. What's yours called? Mine? This baby's a pulse hammer. The weapon stood half as high as Ekin did, power beating inside his head. You get hit by this thing, it'll knock you so high you'd think you were flying. He stroked the handle tenderly. This sweetheart here has been with me ever since I joined up with the Ferals. Ray's rolled his eyes. Ugh, it's a hammer, not your love interest. What? Don't you be talking about my baby like that, Ekin said in mock offense. A warning ping suddenly issued from the hall projector. Rays, get up here, Calvin ordered. Look at this. Rays stepped up to the readout. Damn, he swore. They have missiles. At that moment, faint booms echoed over the sound of the engine. Outside of the cockpit, bright lights with smoking tails became visible. They began to fly towards us. Calvin opened up the challenge to the rest of the fleet. Evasive maneuvers. Put all energy into the upper shields. He turned to Rays. I need you to take down as many missiles as you can before they reach us. Rays nodded and dropped to his knees, face relaxing as he concentrated. The missiles soared in the sky, announcing their deadly presence. The air outside the cockpit began to quiver as nature bowed down to raise. The missiles reached their peak, beginning to curve downwards towards us. Focusing, he slowly raised his arms as the power he wielded grew in potency. The missiles screamed as they flew at us, crying out fiery death. Finally, he launched his telekinetic attack towards the oncoming onslaughts. Raw energy flew towards the missiles. As they hit, they exploded into a glorious display of fire and shrapnel. The destruction looked almost beautiful, like what I'd imagined fireworks to look like. Releasing a breath of air, Reyes opened his eyes to examine his work. Suddenly, the shrapnel reoriented itself midair and charged towards us. His eyes widened in surprise as he desperately tried to summon a shield around our vehicle. It almost worked. The treader rocked back and forth with the explosions outside. Reyes still sat in the center of the cabin, sweat covering his face. We started to tip to the side as the treads were destroyed, but a great force grabbed our vehicle and forced it to stay straight. We finally ground to a stop, everyone inside miraculously unharmed. Out. Now, Reyes said through clenched teeth. We all exited immediately, stepping into the newly formed craters outside. Ekin carried Reyes out, face still contorted from the strain. When Ekin's feet hit the ground, Reyes finally let go of his hold on the treader, allowing it to crash down in front of us. Put me down, Reyes said. Ekin obliged, dumping him unceremoniously on his feet. Reyes stumbled for a moment before regaining his balance. We're still a mile away from the Raven's convoy, displeasure across Calvin's face. We'll be joining the fight late. He paused, turning to Ely. Are they treaders that didn't get hit by the barrage? She checked a screen attached to her arm guard. No. I'm not getting any signals from any of them. I think we might be the only ones left alive. Face grim, Calvin absorbed the dark news. Looks like we're walking then. Or, they'll just bring the party to us. Reyes pointed to the now mobile enemy camp. Dust began to fly in the distance as their treaders plowed their way towards us. They'll be on us in a minute, Calvin observed. New plan. Our goal is to defend this spot for as long as possible. With any luck, the other squads will tear them apart from behind as we slow them down. Use any wreckage you can as cover. My head flew from side to side looking for cover. Desperate, I slid into one of the craters along with Ekin, Reyes, and Ely. Must you follow me around, Reyes said, his helmet sliding into place over his head. Always, Ekin joked. How could I live without my favorite telekinetic? Sighing, Reyes focused on the approach enemy. I took out my pistol and tightly clung to its grip. I watched as the blood ravens drove towards us. My mind started to recall the nightmares the ravens had done to me, to what they were still doing to me. Cold hate welled in my heart as I thought of my captive sister. I was ready to fight. I was ready to kill. I was... darkness. Everything around me turned black as if ink had been poured over the world. I fell to the ground underneath me, but I couldn't see it. I heard distant shouts, but didn't see anyone. I was alone. I frantically tried to find something, anything in the void. Something found me. Out of the night, a phantom dove towards me, blades replacing its outstretched arms. The faceless beast had no lower body, just smoke where legs should be. Horrid scars covered its face, blotting out the eyes, but not the mouth. Oh God, the mouth. It was fixated in a grotesque smile, teeth unnaturally long and jaws stretched freakishly wide. His chin reached back to its chest as it spread wider and wider, preparing to shred me into fleshy pieces of myself. A wordless scream resonated from my mouth as I fired at the demon, but the beams of light did nothing to stop it. His laugh, dark and sinister, taunted my futile efforts to try to stop it. I kept trying. Suddenly, a piercing light tore through the phantom, ripping the darkness away from the world. I felt a hand grab my shoulder and drag me back down inside the crater. Recovering from my horrific vision, I looked up to see Ely staring back at me. Are you all right? She asked, the sound of discharging weapons resonating above the crater. What was that thing? I shouted. Another telepath. He was trying to kill you. I managed to beat him out of your head, she told me. I felt invaded and unclean. My mind had been controlled by another being. The thought was revolting to me. I quickly tried to shake off the feeling. Thanks, I said. She smiled. Don't mention it. Now let's go kill some ravens. I grinned and drew my shock burst. Let's! Climbing back out of the crater, we charged into the mist of battle. That's it.
Hi, my name is Jessica Westman, and I'll be reading a part of my memoir, From Yellow to Black to Yellow Suns.
I was sick of change. I wanted my life back to be the way it was when I had my sister around, but it kept changing again and again. I didn't go to school for a week after it happened, but Mom said after that I had to go back. She also said that her and Dad weren't doing good, so I had to go live with somebody else. First, they brought me to my uncle's house. My uncle was a big guy, and he didn't say much. He was always that uncle that I was afraid of, so I wasn't too excited to be staying at his house. I heard him talking on the phone, and he said that my mom and dad had a drinking problem, and that's why I couldn't stay with them. They had to go somewhere to get help. I was never very good at getting through the night. At home, I had my mom to cuddle up with, but it was different here. I wasn't going to go sleep in my scary uncle's bed, so I just laid on the pillow bed he set up for me and cried. I was alone, and I couldn't hold myself together. First, my sister was gone, and now my parents weren't with me either. I cried until my uncle came downstairs and told me I wasn't allowed to do that. Then I stopped. I sat on the bed for as long as I can remember, and then I woke up to my uncle telling me to get ready for school. Wasn't he going to help me pick out my clothes and get ready like my mom always did? I guess not, since he walked right away after he woke me up. My cousin told me that it was going to be picture day at school, so I dug through the old tan suitcase my mom had packed for me, looking for my favorite outfit. While I was looking, my uncle came back in and told me that I was supposed to wear my purple dress for pictures. I absolutely could not stand that dress, all frilly and flowery. Mom knew I didn't like flowers. I wanted to throw a fit, but I quickly reminded myself that I wasn't allowed to cry and slipped on my hated purple dress. When I went back to school, I could feel all my classmates staring at me. I guess the teacher must have told them what happened. I got through the morning with a pretty normal school routine, with the worst school picture I've ever taken thrown in there. I didn't want to smile after everything that happened and while I was wearing that terrible dress, so the photographer took out some puppets to make me laugh. They weren't funny, but I forced out a little laugh anyway to get it over with. Then came snack time. Snack time used to be that time of the day that I looked forward to. I'd always have a bar from home. Dad made sure we had enough in the house for me to take one to school every day since they were my favorite. Today, though, while all the other kids were pulling open their squeaky metal desks to get their snack, a lady came into the classroom to bring me out. Her name was Janelle. Janelle told me that she was a family counselor, not that I knew what that meant. She walked me down the hall to this little room that had a round wooden table with plastic orange chairs around it. She told me that every day during snack time we were going to come to this room so she could help me feel better about my sister's death. She said we could talk or color or play games, whatever I felt like doing. She seemed pretty nice, but why did I have to be here with Janelle while all the other kids got to stay in the classroom and have snack time? I wanted to be normal like everybody else. I didn't want to have something special to do. On my first day with Janelle, I didn't want to talk, so I colored a picture. She wanted me to draw a picture of my sister's funeral, but I didn't know what to draw because my mom had me stay at my uncle's house on that day. I drew a sun in the corner of my page like I did on every picture, but this time the sun had to be black. It couldn't be yellow again, not without my little sister. Me and my sister used to color all the time, but usually not on paper. When we weren't coloring on the bottom side of the table, we colored on each other. I remember when I had chicken pox, Nikki was really jealous and she wanted them too. She was only jealous because Mom made up this rule that if we got chicken pox, we got to go up to the movie store in town and rent movies with their deal of 5 movies for 5 days for $5. After I had had the chicken pox for a few days and she still didn't have them, we decided to give them to her. We took every color marker we could find and completely covered her body in dots. Her new case of chicken pox was prettier than mine. At least that's what we thought. Mom didn't really agree. I had so many memories coloring these pretty colors with Nikki, but I didn't want to do it again. Not without her. So from that day forward, my suns would have to be black.
My name is Blake Smith, and I'm just going to read from the beginning of chapter 2 of my story called Offspring. Here goes. Richard sat in his usual spot in the classroom near the front behind Rita. The mentor was lecturing on history again, and Richard desperately tried to pay attention. By 2200, there were an estimated 23 billion people alive on Earth. Cities were overrun and expanded for miles in all directions. Governments tried to keep the peace, but disease and fighting overcame the masses, and war broke out. Richard couldn't stop thinking about Rita sitting in his apartment. His apartment. The way her hair caught the light coming in through the window. The way she tucked her feet beneath her as she sat on his couch. The way her eyes glowed in the elevator. The Republic thinks about 1 billion people died by the war's end. The combined effects of radiation and pollution from the destroyed cities caused the ozone layer of our atmosphere to weaken, and the surface became uninhabitable. What should I say to her today, Richard thought. Ever since she left, Richard felt that ball in his chest expand and shrink. It felt different this time. His skin felt hot, but it didn't hurt. He didn't feel like something was trying to take him over. Rather, he was waking up. He felt more. Creating an environment perfect for the plague, it ravaged the surviving populations, and by 2325 it had killed 8 billion and left the rest infertile before the Republic rose to power and created the vaccine that saved everyone. Richard looked out the window to an approaching storm on the horizon. Lightning wove through the huge clouds, lighting the lake below. Distant thunder boomed and shook the building. He loved storms. Richard never felt more alive than when a storm raged outside, except for the night before with Rita. So that is why you four are here. Your parents were extremely fortunate to conceive and bring you to term. The plague has changed your DNA, hence the differences among you, and now lightning flashed in smaller intervals as the storm rumbled closer. Richard saw the lake in tumult below. Waves crashed against buildings and washed completely over others. Richard's skin tingled and he felt air moving over his skin even though the vents in the room were shut. And that will be all for today. You are dismissed. Richard, Rita, could you come up here for a moment? The mentor beckoned them with his hands. Richard nodded his head and got up out of his chair. Rita stood up and stretched on her toes like she had the night before. Richard felt chills go down his spine when he remembered the last time she had done that and grabbed his arm to keep her balance. He could still feel her warm hand, the feeling of electricity passing through him, immobilizing him. He walked to the front of the room and Rita stood next to him. You seem a little more attentive today, Richard. I'm glad, the mentor said with a smile on his face. I trust you have something to do with that, Rita, he said with a sly glint in his eye. Rita shuffled her feet uncomfortably. I just helped him study, sir. He's really quite brilliant once he applies himself. Richard laughed. Brilliant? I don't know about that. He's pretty much went over everything we've ever learned. The mentor chuckled and motioned for the two to follow him to his desk next to the window. I wanted to talk to you two today because you two are different than the rest. Rita's eyes squinted and she crossed her arms. What do you mean? You two had noticed that your eyes are a distinctive shade of green while your classmates look different. The fact is, your eyes give away your mutation. Richard crossed his arms too and put aside all thoughts of Rita. Mutation? You two are different, capable of more than you could ever dream of. I'm concerned that the Republic will take notice soon if you don't. He was cut off by a tone that emanated from his desktop screen where a message icon appeared. He swiped his hand over it and the sound and messages appeared. I don't have much time now. This is why I've been teaching you history, Richard. There's so much more to you two than just being lucky survivors of a race doomed to die. Rita's eyes had widened more and more as the mentor continued. Her arms loosened and fell to her side. I can't say much more, but just be careful. You're not the only ones with this mutation. The mentor tapped his desk and the message reappeared. You are dismissed, and remember, keep studying our history, your history. Everything will become clear. That's where I'm going to stop.
I'm Jenny, and I'm going to be the opening of my novel, Lindberg. Thank you so much for thinking of me, Mark said, but really I'd rather not marry a monster. The king stared at her, his men standing stiffly by. It had not, of course, been thoughtfulness that led him to a cottage in the woods. Mark knew this, and knew that marriage was not optional, and that one could not speak to a king in this manner and expect to keep one's head. But when one has already been sentenced to death, such things as respect for royalty matter very little. She had heard the story. She was sure the whole kingdom had by now. How some 9 months ago their prince had set off to find a bride, and how his path had been blocked by a great lindworm who spoke with the voice of a man, demanding a bride of his own before the prince could have one. How instead of chopping him into small pieces, the prince had ridden home, and how instead of sending someone else to chop him up, the king had set about finding the lindworm a bride. How the lindworm had devoured that bride, and demanded another, which the king had also found.
And now, with 2 princesses dead and 2 countries about to declare war, he had chosen Marit to be the 3rd. She was no one, and lived near enough to the palace. He could not risk another princess. It was rumored that Lindberg was his son. She did not know how true that might be. She did not much care. Finally, the king found his voice. You misunderstand me. This is not an offer or a suggestion. You may come willingly, in which case your family will be compensated, or you may be dragged off by your hair. Choose wisely. Kings, she thought, ought to be more impressive and aloof, also kinder. There was no doubt they needed the king's gold. It had been a dry summer and an unpleasant winter. If he had called for volunteers, she might have gone to see her family safe through this next year. But he had not called for volunteers, and stood now in the mud, glaring down at her in his purple coat as if she were the one that was worthless. The chickens squawked around him. Yeah, and what next, she said. After me, you'll kill off every maid in the country, and then I suppose you'll have to go to war, and find slaves to feed his appetite? Discipline is important for growing boys. Your Majesty, learn to say no to your son. The king slapped her, but did not contest the claim he was the Lindworm's father. He did not bother to punish her further. There was no further punishment than this wedding. You will be collected, and the gold delivered, in 1 week, he said. Of course, there will be men watching to see that you do not run. Of course, she echoed. Her father and sister were in the back. They would not have heard the commotion. She could hear the cow mooing still from here, more than enough to drown out a king. It would be left to her, then, to explain. She did not look forward to it. They had dreamt of kings and queens in ball gowns. Greta was half in love with Prince Harold, as were most girls her age. The king had long had a reputation for mercy and kindness before the Lindworm, and now she would explain to them that he was the sort of man who struck defenseless girls in the forest. It was 3 days later, wandering the woods to escape the oppression of mourning at home, that she met the old woman. She was short, with white hair spilling from her cap, bright and cheerful in a blue skirt and a red vest, and she smiled like an old friend at Marit. For what are you so sad? The woman asked. It is nothing. She would not sing her sorrows to a stranger with the soldiers watching. She had some small pride still. Come, said the woman, it may be that I can help. She leaned forward and spoke softly, so that only Marit might hear. It is the Lindworm, is it not? Marit was too surprised to answer, and the woman led her deeper into the trees, where there was snow still on the ground. The soldiers could see them still, from their post behind the evergreens, but might not hear. Now, here is what you must do.
Hi, I'm Celeste Harlow. My piece is a little different than everyone else's. I did a journalistic piece about the music scene in Minneapolis, and I'll be reading a portion on one of the venues here, the Cedar Cultural Center. The Cedar Cultural Center is locally famed for 2 things: its volunteers and chai. Both warmly greet patrons upon entering under the marquee. A few steps in, concertgoers notice 3 TV screens in the small loggia, each displaying a unique, colorful concert of the venue's history. Music from another country often plays over the loudspeakers before a show. Old wooden doors nestle into the curved wall on the left. Behind them, the old 450-seat movie theater auditorium fills with energy and an audience. The building's past has left its mark in just a few ways. Teal velvet triangles line the top portion of the walls. Can lights hang from the ceilings. The near-haphazard stage juts out toward the middle of the room and stands about 5 feet tall. Though no barrier separates attendees from performers, most only approach the stage with evident hesitation. Depending on the night, white plastic folding chairs sit together in long rows. On more popular nights, the seats scoot closer together, ensuring only enough room for knees to graze their backs. On occasion, chairs are forgone, exposing a gymnasium-like floor and enough room to sway or dance. The auditorium is filled nightly with global sounds or local tunes. You could pick any week here, any week, and you'd find a Celtic show, a dance show, an electronic performance artist, somebody from Africa. Seriously, office manager and director of volunteers Jason Kaufman claimed. That is every week here, Michael Lord, marketing manager, agreed. It's like that here all the time. I don't think anyone else can claim that. No, no one can. The Cedar staff understand music to be a binding force, transcending language and culture. The venue's mission has always been to promote intercultural appreciation and understanding through the presentation of global music and dance. The Cedar is committed to artistic excellence and integrity, diversity of programming, support for emerging artists, and community outreach. Programming at the Cedar is continually diversified to fulfill the Cedar's intentions. Each of their 250 shows a year must meet standards set by a 24-year reputation of quality music. Our fans are used to a certain caliber of music, said Michael Lord. They count on consistent quality. Musicians have come to count on the Cedar's reputation as well. Many return to the stage on a number of occasions. For some, it's a stop on an international tour. For others, it is a destination known for its global-mindedness and attentive audience. For a small number, it is home. When local musicians want to have an event, they call us, explained Kaufman. Though some musicians are Cedar acts, most grace the stage less frequently, often for album releases or unique bills. When they do, Kaufman added, it's because they're searching for a listening room, a title the Cedar has earned unofficially since its first show. Concert after concert, musicians comment on the astonishing silence of the room. People listen with their full attention instead of the murmur of bars or the shouting of clubs. Cedar fills with slightly audible affirmation and appreciation for the music. There are no rules about it, no signs posted on the door asking people to be quiet. It just happens, Lord pointed out. Even at standing shows, people just don't talk. Lord and Kaufman had no clear answers about this quiet culture, but speculated it might have something to do with their show times. They operate on theater time. Most shows begin at 7:30 or 8 p.m. People usually aren't drunk yet, so that might be a factor. Lord and Kaufman laughed in agreement. Regardless of the effect of the sobriety of audience members has on the noise level, it speaks to a wide range of people who enter the theater. Any given night, the crowd may be comprised of hipsters, yuppies, baby boomers, and everything in between. Most concerts at the Cedar have been intentionally all-ages shows for the past 24 years. Lord commented, there are people that have been coming here from the beginning, since 1989, and have seen all sorts of genres of music.
Thank you so much for coming now. Have some cider and say hello to the writers.